Teens Talk Politics. I'm Michaela Kells.
And I'm Jay Zerniak.
And today we're sitting down with Wisconsin's Congressman Sean Duffy.
All right. Can you explain the process of how an act becomes a bill, which becomes a law for us?
So first off, I want to thank you guys for having me, and I'm delighted that we have young people excited about politics and excited about the political process. So thanks for having me. So the way bills become laws. First of all, you have to have an idea. You have to see a problem in need of a solution. So whether you want to create existing law, or you want to create law, or you want to repeal existing law, you got to have an idea of changes that need to be made. And then you have to draft the legislation. Now, as we do that, we'll oftentimes want input from people who are well informed on the specific issue that your bill will address. So you'll get input from stakeholders. As you draft the bill, you might put out a discussion draft to get input on it. But anyways, you introduce your bill, and then that bill, if you get enough political support, meaning you get people to co-sponsor it, you talk to the chairman of the relevant committee and get the chairman excited about your idea, you'll get a hearing on your bill in the subcommittee. Subcommittee will have a hearing that has jurisdiction on the issue that you're bringing up. Then hopefully the whole committee will have a hearing on your bill. Then they'll do what is a markup. They'll have a committee vote on your bill where amendments are offered. If it gets out of committee, it'll go to the House floor. If the leadership sees it appropriate, you'll get a vote on the House floor. If it passes on the House floor, you got to work in the Senate, try to get the Senate to do a companion bill. I mean, a bill just like yours. And your bill has to also pass the Senate. If the bills don't match, there's some different language in the two bills. You go to a conference between the House and the Senate to work out the differences. And once the House and the Senate pass the same bill, it goes to the President for his signature. But the way you have to make it happen is you got to get, there's so many ideas, there's so many bills, there's so much legislation. You need to get people, members of Congress and the community, passionate about the idea that you're trying to pass.
All right, our next question.
A long answer to a very short question.
Yeah. All right, do you feel multi-million-dollar campaigning for any position in government takes away from the proper function of government?
So I think what happens, so you have to have a balance. You want people to have their First Amendment right to engage in the political process. And so we're very sensitive to that point. I think what's happened though is you've seen a lot of outside money, which means it's one thing if an individual contributes to a campaign. It's something else if you have outside groups or unions that funnel money into candidate coffers or into outside groups that just run ads for or against the candidate. I think there's the right balance. And right now, I don't think we're in balance with how money is spent. What you have to do, though, is you see some people say, well, you know, take away all the union money. And then they'll say, well, take away all the business money. And they'll fight about, you know, whose money should be taken away. If you're going to take money away, you got to take it away on both sides. And if you do that, I'm supportive of making sure you have less money in politics because, frankly, if anyone watches TV, I get a lot of ads run against me, and I'd love to have less ads. And less money means less ads, and it makes probably me happier. So.
All right. So what is the United States Export-Import Bank, and is it essential for the government to function?
So the Import-Export Bank, basically what the bank will do is help finance deals that American companies make with foreign companies or foreign governments. So the biggest user of the bank is Boeing. So Boeing, to sell expensive jets to other countries, they'll oftentimes finance it through the XM, the Import-Export Bank. What becomes an interesting conversation is because the Boeing planes that are sold to a foreign country that are subsidized by the Import-Export Bank, you'd go, that's great, we're selling American jets to a foreign country, we applaud that, that's American jobs, That's a good thing, right?
Mhm.
Well, if you're Delta Airlines, Delta will come in and say, but hold on, I too am an American country and I can't get that subsidy. I have to buy the planes at full cost, and I fly on the same routes against the same planes of a foreign airline that's getting subsidized by the American government, and I can't compete because they buy their planes so much cheaper than I can. And I'm losing money and I'm losing American jobs. So what happens is the Import-Export Bank gets caught in a conversation about what industry should the American taxpayer pick as a winner or a loser? Or should we not be picking winners and losers and let people compete on the open market? I'm a free enterprise guy, and I think when your government picks winners and losers, where Boeing wins and Delta loses, that's not a good thing. Number one, and number two, the Import-Export Bank has become very political. There's a triangle between the Obama White House, Boeing, and the Import-Export Bank, and it's all a very liberal, progressive triangle between the three. All jobs, all exports, they don't think are equal. The Import-Export Bank oftentimes won't fund jobs that are coal-related or carbon-related. So some jobs are good in America, but if they're coal-related jobs, they give far higher scrutiny and sometimes won't finance. So if you have a mining equipment job from Bucyrus in Milwaukee, selling mining equipment, that gets far higher scrutiny than, say, a Boeing jet sale. If you believe in American jobs, you should support all American jobs. You shouldn't pick winners and losers again, whether they're carbon or not carbon jobs.
All right, what do you feel is the most efficient way to get information to your constituents?
So I use all mediums. So for one, whether it's, I send out an email every week about what we're doing, most every week, what we're doing in Congress, what we're up to. I get information that comes in through letters and phone calls and emails. I respond by letters, phone calls, and emails to those. I try to do op-eds in the paper, try to do TV. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and try to touch people in all the different forums that they use. And I think you got to be where people are at. And so every space that you use, I try to be in.
Since you're in support of small businesses, do you feel the need for minimum wage to raise it? Why or why not?
So if you look at central Wisconsin, there are all kinds of jobs that pay well above the minimum wage, and those jobs can't get filled. Okay, you can't, $10, $12, $15 an hour jobs that there are openings and no one will fill them. So I think we have an issue of where is the drive, or where is the workers to come in and fill these jobs? And these are not high-skilled jobs. You got to be able to show up on time. You got to be willing to work, and you got to pass drug tests. So the standards aren't high, and if you're willing to work hard, people are paying well above the minimum wage. I think the minimum wage is one where people may not have the best skill set. They come in at a lower paying job, they learn that skill set, they learn to show up on time, they learn to follow the directive of their boss. And when they do that, they quickly move out of a minimum wage job because they're worth a lot more than that. And they get a track, climbing the ladder up into the middle class. And so, I think that we're not having an issue on the minimum wage side, we're having an issue in the middle wage jobs, trying to find people to fill them. So, and one of my concerns becomes, some of the small businesses, what happens to them. Walmart's one story, but your small businesses on Main Street are another story, and what impact does that have on those folks?
All right, our final question is, what is the biggest problem facing the youth today?
Listen, I think that the youth is, you're in a far different world that I grew up in. Global competition has changed the world that you're going to live in compared to the world that I was going to live in when I was graduating from high school. I was competing against Minnesota, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi. You're competing against China, India, Vietnam, it is far more challenging, the world that we live in today. And so I think making sure that you have a great education, making sure that you can then go to school and get a good education at a reasonable price. So when you get out, you can actually pay your loans off, and it doesn't sink your ship. I think those are a couple of the biggest issues. It's education related. And then, making sure that there are good opportunities for people when they get out of school to get jobs in the fields that they've studied. And that means you have to have a growing economy. And sometimes I think that you look at what's been happening in Washington, especially with the administration. There's so many rules and regulations. They're so burdensome for small businesses. And because small businesses that are the driver of jobs and economic growth in our community, they're not a ton of big businesses, you're the small businesses. They can't comply with all those rules and regulations. And they spend more money and more time complying with government than they are about growing business and growing wages within their business. And that becomes a real problem. And I think this fight happens every generation or so. But you see a growth in government, a growth of impact of government in your lives. And a freer society with limited government is a more prosperous and I think a more happy society. And you're going to have to engage in a conversation with your peers of what do we want our government to look like? Do we want a European-style socialist state with huge taxes, limited growth, and limited opportunity? Or do we want to have what our parents had and our grandparents had, which is a great, thriving, growing American economy that has limited government, streamlined rules, that has a safety net, but not an overexpansive safety net. I think that's going to be the challenge and the fight of your generation. And I think if we move away from this traditional form of government that we've had in our country to the European-style socialist state, you're going to see the country change in profound ways, and I think for the negative. And so I think you all have to engage in that conversation to make sure your government works for you, but still offers you the freedom to live the life the way you see fit, as opposed to living the life the way a bureaucrat in Washington sees fit for you. And a bureaucrat who's never been to your town, who's never met your family. A bureaucrat, though, who thinks he's so smart can manage and run your life for you. That's a wrong approach. You should be left to do that yourself. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges that your generation faces is, what is my government going to look like? What should it look like? And if you want it to be limited, you're going to have to fight a big fight to make sure that happens. So a really long answer, again, to your question. So.
Great, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.